everybody, welcome back. Today on One on One, we're chatting with WWE Hall of Famer Jim Ross. One of the key things you did as the Vice President of Talent Relations was having the foresight to get the ball rolling on the developmental program. And we saw that with Ohio Valley Wrestling, with UPW, and look at the main roster today, and they're reaping the rewards of the foresight you had at the time.
Well, I got lucky. You know, I hired, I was able to hire Mick Foley, who was, had been around, but never was hired as a full-timer in WWE. I hired Steve Austin, who was Steve was in the business 7 or 9 years when I got him, but I knew him in WCW, and I brought him to WWE. I hired The Rock, who was cut from the Calgary Stampeders, who was needing a job, and I looked at him because of his heritage. His grandpa and his dad were both outstanding in the ring. But I knew that those kind of hires were going to be few and far between. And we had to create our own stars. I got tired of talking to old guys that had drug or alcohol problems that would get on the phone or come meet with you and cry like they were at a church service to beg for a job because they'd blown all their money and they wouldn't make any more mistakes. And they hadn't even worked for me. I didn't even, you know, they're expressing themselves and they're cleansing their soul, which okay, it was just cathartic to them. I'm listening. But again, they're 35 or 40 years old. And you can't build a roster with 35 or 40-year-old guys. Now, you can have some 35 or 40-year-olds on there and older and all that, but you gotta find a core nucleus that's young. And you gotta grow with them, because it takes 3 to 5 years for a guy to really, if he's gonna make it, he doesn't normally make it somewhere around that window. So, you know, I just went to McMahon and said, you know, where's the next wave coming from? The independents. There's no territories left that's viable. And they're using retreads, so what do we do? So I had the idea to do this developmental thing and to do a little territory and train, and they could do their own TV and learn time cues and learn basic what camera to look at and things like that. So, and at one time we had 3. We had one in Memphis, we had one in Louisville, we had one in Cincinnati, and one in LA with UPW. And now I think they're back working with UPW some, and but their primary place is in Tampa. You know, in a perfect world, WWE needs about probably 4 to 6 of those. You need one in Canada. You know, you need one on Northeast United States. California's good. You need one in the Midwest, St. Louis, wherever. Maybe one in Texas. But you need to go where the population is and where people can come and train. And and look at as many bodies as possible. Maybe for every 100 that come through your door, you'll find 2 or 3 that's what you want. It's the ratio. I've always believed it's harder to make it as a WWE star than it is to get a job in the NFL. It's the roster spots.
In terms of the on-air personality of Jim Ross, a lot of people have said that the most real part of WWE programming is Jim Ross. How have you been able to keep your enthusiasm so high, being involved in the industry as long as you have?
I think I've been blessed, honestly. You know, I could say I drink a lot of coffee. I get caffeined up, get all jacked up. You know, I am a fan of whatever I'm doing at that time. I like to work. I like to stay busy, and I'm a self-starter to a fault. But I've always been a fan of pro wrestling. I'm becoming a big fan of MMA to a very competitive degree of pro wrestling, and so both those are starting to rival football, which is my. I would have left pro wrestling, and I would not pursue MMA if I had a football gig. If the cards, now I'm not telling you I'd take a football gig to make $25,000 a year, or I can take a pro wrestling gig and make $500,000 a year. I'm smarter than I look, thank God. But if the field was somewhat level, I'm in the football business because that's my deal.
We're going to head to break. When we come back, we're going to chat a bit about mixed martial arts with Jim Ross here on the Fight Network. Welcome back to One on One. He is the voice of the modern era of professional wrestling. He is Jim Ross. Tell us a little bit about your interest in mixed martial arts. How did it hook you?
It started for me, MMA started for me on pay-per-views. Back in the early days when Bob Meyerowitz was running UFC, I think it was UFC then, right? And Bob Meyerowitz was the head honcho of UFC. And, you know, Hoist Gracie was the phenom, the little skinny guy in the gi that was a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter that, you know, 8 out of 10 guys in a bar couldn't tell you what Brazilian jiu-jitsu was. They had no clue, and I was one of them. I understood barroom brawling, and you know, I've been with enough pro wrestlers in bars where the alpha male in the bar gets all juiced up and wants to try one for size. I've seen enough barroom brawls to be expert at calling those. But I got involved because I thought, I bought into the promos that this is bare knuckle fighting to a finish, and the way they marketed it was so, you know, Spartan-esque and provocative. And as a male, I took the bait, and I bought in, and I liked it by and large. A lot of things I didn't like. It was not a great TV presentation back then. The announcing was horrible. They didn't explain things. You know, when nobody knew what Hoist Gracie was doing when he was on his back, and they didn't realize that he was more dangerous perhaps on his back than he was in any other position. And then all of a sudden you see him on his back and he's blocking punches or whatever, then his adversary's tapping. What happened? And it's just, you know, then I got challenged to learn more about it. Well, I like this, but I don't know why I like it, but it's pretty interesting. I need to learn more about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Who are the Gracies? You know, so I started doing research. I started studying. And then some of the amateur guys I'd known. And then, you know, the Shamrock era came along, and, you know, Kenny added a little bit of sizzle and showbiz to the presentation. Tito Ortiz started getting involved in it, you know, and that was, Tito and Kenny both would have been great, and Kenny did. I thought Kenny was one of our better guys in WWE at one point. But that's where it got me. I think that the barbaric nature of being a male and my bloodlust, you know, this is gonna be good. Let's watch this. And you know, Emmanuel Yarborough fought, you know, a big African American guy, weighed about 500 or so. Oleg Tartikoff was back in those days, you know. Of course, you had all the things. You had the huge black man that, well, nobody's going to whip his ass. Then you got the Russian bear. Oh man, ain't nobody going to whip his ass. And it's like, you know, it just got to be really good, and it was provocative, and I liked it. And now it's come so far, it's not even that comparison to the Meyerowitz days. And I only use that not as a knock to Bob Meyerowitz. I've never met him. But it's just the era. And where it's come now is night and day. It's still got miles to go. Still got a lot of work. They got a lot of work to do on their image and other things, I believe. But it has captured my imagination. I'm fully invested in MMA. I watch virtually every pay-per-view. I watch all the weekly shows. I have a keen interest in it. And it's ironic that you mentioned it's, to me, to go broadcast an MMA match, as long as I got myself very familiar with terms, timing, recognizing jeopardy, selling it, not overselling it. I think it'd be Mid-South all over again. It'd be back in my roots without being, you know, I'm not going to go carnival barker, but I would do it in a dignified way. But when it came time to get after it, and somebody was making a flurry, or somebody was about to tap, or somebody was in deep jeopardy, I get it. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm like this in my chair at home. You know, hey, you know, you feel things. So I think that's kind of why I've been able to stick around so long in wrestling, was I felt the product. I feel the game. I invest emotionally in the game. And I know that I'm never going to be the best at broadcasting anything, but I know that very few are going to outwork me, prepare me, and feel it like I do. And it's just, I wish I had felt that about going to medical school, you know, something really, or I could, you know, could have had a little longer run and made, you know, something maybe something more, a little bit more refined. But that was my deal. I have always thought that's why I was here, tell stories, call games.
Paul Heyman once told me in an interview that succeeding in professional wrestling is like earning your PhD, but the credits aren't recognized anywhere else. Do you feel that stigma is always going to be attached to people that have come out of professional wrestling?
Well, I realized that after 36 years in it, that I'm going to always be known as the wrestling guy to some people. I get offended when talk of my you know, contracts, or you know, what's next for JR, you know, all that stuff. It's like some people think that when we get in wrestling that we can't do anything else. We're helpless. We're little helpless people. And if we don't have a wrestling match to call or to be involved in, that we're just pretty well non-existent. That'd be like you producing a segment on your network, and for someone to say, well, you know, he's really good at these fight things and MMA and wrestling. I says, he loves that. But you know, he can't do hard news. Huh. Why not? Why can't you do hard news? Are you stupid? No. Can you read? Can you write? Can you research? Are you lazy? I can read, I can write, and I'm not lazy. I can research. So you can do hard news. If you have passion for what you're seeing on your monitor or what you're experiencing around you, and you have adequately prepared for that venture, I am a firm believer that you can transfer the skills that you utilize in one genre to another. Now, if you said, JR, could you do cricket? I don't understand cricket. But if you could teach me cricket and I knew the rules, hell yeah. How about curling? You know, curling was big in the United States last year, and I think it was more of a tongue-in-cheek joke to the drunks who went to American bars, because curling got so much airtime, seemingly, in the States on the Olympics. But people became fans of it. So could I do curling? Hell yeah. If you would help me, if you were a good producer and you could bring me up to speed, could I transfer my storytelling to curling? Yeah, it'd be kind of fun. Now I can hear somebody laughing, oh, can you hear JR calling somebody a slobber knocker or a curler? Well, I might not go that far, but I could do it, because I think I can. The wrestling business gives you, because it's so competitive, the confidence to do a lot of things where you're told that you couldn't. And you learn to market, you learn to promote, you learn to prepare, you learn to work hard. Work ethic's imperative. You learn to take a niche product and make it mass appeal. It's a great marketing course. So I think that when Paul Heyman or anybody else says it's like getting a PhD once you've kind of gone through the process in wrestling, you know, I think he's probably right, because of this multifaceted. It's got all these different sides, whether you're negotiating with lawyers or agents, or you're scheduling something, or you're working on travel details for a tour, or you're negotiating deals with the arena managers. It's just got so many phases. And I've been around so long, you know, that I've had my finger in all these pies over the years, where I've had experiences in all these areas. So I would think that, yeah, you gotta, when you exit, you're gonna exit with some skills if you've paid attention and applied yourself.
When we come back, we'll continue our special hour-long edition of One-on-One with Jim Ross. Welcome back to One on One. He is the voice of the modern era of professional wrestling, Jim Ross. It's funny because when Zuffa first purchased the UFC, Dana White stated that the television deal that would change their fortunes would be something akin to Tuesday Night Fights on the USA Network, but instead it was a reality show in The Ultimate Fighter where they put personalities inside of a house, and the fight was only part of the formula.
Obviously the fight is the payoff. The fight is at the end of the journey for that particular trip. But the stop-offs along the way that one makes on this journey is what you remember, what's memorable, and what you engage. It'd be like you and I taking a car trip from New York to L.A., and we're going to drive straight through, because we know when we get to L.A., we're going to see the ocean, the beach, and we didn't, and we drove straight through. We saw no sights. We didn't learn about the town we're passing through, the state, the city. The journey was benign. You cannot make an emotional investment in a fight if you don't know the fighters and something about them that you as a viewer can relate to. The fights become just indiscriminate. Two guys, they might as well be fighting with masks on. And don't even give them names, just give them numbers. 7 is trying to apply a Kimura on 9. Well, that's insane. That's ridiculous. You would never do that. Of course you wouldn't. That's why it's imperative that the thing about the Ultimate Fighter that worked is that we as viewers and fans got to know who these fighters were as personalities and individuals. A little bit about their background, a little bit about their, what made them tick. And that's great wrestling storytelling. You get to know your heroes. You get to know, well, I know that Bret Hart had 12 brothers and sisters, and he grew up in Calgary, and his dad was a great wrestler, and his dad played for the Edmonton Eskimos, and blah, blah, blah. And now I got to know him. Hey, I came from a big family. Or, I wrestled as an amateur. Or, you find common ground that you can relate to. And so the Ultimate Fighter allowed us to see who these fighters were, and then when they did fight, we could make the all-important emotional investment into their fight. That's the secret. That's why great wrestling, that's why some WrestleManias are better than others, because the main event, like the last 2 years, have been Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and they've been extraordinary events because of the emotional investment that we fans had in those two performers that was built over a long period of time. They don't have that long in MMA to build a 25-year career. They don't last that long. You got to consolidate it down, and you got to tell better stories, and you got to do a better job of fleshing out who are these people. Why should I like that guy and not like that guy? Why are they fighting? What does it take for this guy to beat this guy? Strategy. Tell me in a layman's terms. What the hell is a Kimura? I had some guys in my house tonight watching the fight, and they kept all these technical terms, and they're over the head of the audience. And clue. So I went, well, that's an arm bar. Why do you say that? I don't know. I'm not announcing it. That guy's announcing it. So Dana was right, though. The UFC got their TV fix now with Spike in the States. I'm assuming Canada as well. They needed that weekly exposure. The Ultimate Fighter allows them to build their personalities. And now I care about who's fighting. It's like Mayhem Miller got relevant for a few-hour period after he caused a commotion at the last Strikeforce fight. I knew who he was, but I didn't know that much about him. But because of his actions and his subsequent actions, which were real Bush League, I thought, I have researched a little bit more about who Mayhem Miller is, just for the hell of it. He aroused my curiosity. Who is the guy with the red hair? Spike, it's right out of wrestling. I know, shouldn't do that. It's MMA. Holier than thou MMA, but MMA should hope at the end of the day that they're as successful as long-term as pro wrestling has been. I hope they are. I love it, but I hope they are. But they're going to have to admit somewhere down the road that they're trying to build a model. There's no doubt that UFC is trying to build a model in many areas, just like WWE. Global footprint, pay-per-view, big, internet, video games, international touring, licensing, marketing, branding of talents. The only thing that they are challenged with is they have to accelerate the growth of their fighters, because the shelf life of an MMA fighter is obviously much shorter than the career under normal circumstances of a pro wrestler. They got to put it in fast forward.
Last question, Jim. We're here at the annual Cauliflower Alley Club reunion, where this year you're going to be the recipient of the Art Abrams Award. 50 years from now, when a 20-year-old is looking at the past recipients and sees your name and asks, "Who was Jim Ross?" what do you want your peers to say about you?
Well, I hope they say that he was one of the significant voices in our genre, and he did it for 4 decades. And that he worked hard, and he loved what he did, and he respected the fans, and even though he wasn't a wrestler, he helped build our business to some degree. So, basically a voice of significance who loved what he did, and wish he could have done a little longer.
Jim, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out and chatting with us. This has been excellent.